Hi, everybody. I think everyone is slowly joining. Hi, I'm Ann, guys. I'm so glad there were so many people interested in this. It makes me really excited to help you guys, show you what it's taken us over a year to learn how to hire someone remotely from the Philippines, but it is working. So I'll wait till, because I know some of you are not work in California time or West Coast, and some of you are on East Coast time. I want to make sure this is starting on the nose, and then I'll enable the recording, and so that way once we get going, if you guys miss something, I tend to talk fast. That's just who I am. You guys will have to tell me to slow down, but I will record this, and that way once it's over, if you guys missed anything, you'll have that to reference, and then I'll follow up with posting like all the things that we talked about as far as the slides, and any like job descriptions that I said I would share, any interviewing questions that I will post, podcasts to listen to that gives you some more background on how to do this. So that way you guys can like start hiring people by tomorrow or start putting your job up post up for tomorrow. Let's see. I don't want to, let's see here. Looks like it's already recording. Let me go ahead and launch it, and that way you guys can have it. Let me share my screen. Hey guys, so I am Ann. I'm so glad that you guys are here to listen to what I've learned over the last year in outsourcing some of our staff to the Philippines. And hopefully with this information, you guys can start saving, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 150 some $1,000 in salary. I'm going to go over like some of the things that we made mistakes on, how to go about doing it, where to find them, what tools you'll need as you start going down this path. And then if you guys have any questions, I usually typically don't do a lot of hosting of Zoom. So I don't think any is, are you guys all on mute? If not, maybe figure out how to mute everybody, and then we can go from there. So if any time that you guys have any issues in hearing me, just let me know, okay? And I'm just gonna get this thing going. So do you guys see my screen right now with how to find and hire outsourced workers for the Philippines? Yes, okay, perfect. So just a little background on me. I have owned CareWorks Health Services. We are an independent agency in Orange County, California for 10 years now. And prior to that, I was more of an account manager. Working with resellers, working with other companies on their business and how to sell the products that we have at that company. And so how I got to learning more about this and just kind of curious on how this works is I listen to a lot of business podcasts. One of them you may want to write down, it's called the $100 MBA. His name is Omar, and in basically 10 minutes each day, he gives you a business tip. And one of his business tips was how to outsource from the Philippines. So, so this is what we're going to go over is basically you'll need to have, you got to stay intellectually curious. There's going to be some homework that on your end that you're going to have to do. So I would recommend some podcasts that I recommend, some reading. There's going to be a lot of research. And then on your end, if you don't have a standard operating procedures on when you hire someone, you know, what do you do when you hire a new person? If you don't have something like that written down or recorded, it's going to require some homework. But in the process of doing that homework, you'll be able to train your virtual assistant at the same time. And part of it also is committing to make it work. A lot of it is that there are some team members in the office that may not want you to do this. They may not, I would say, directly sabotage it, but they may not be willing to give the best effort into making this happen. So if you're planning on doing this, I wouldn't quite share the information until you're ready to hire the person and then get them trained. And also make sure that you present it in a way to your office staff that this is going to help them and not take away from them. And this has allowed us to keep a lot of our staff through the pandemic when we lost a number of clients, is that because we have these virtual workers. So the main reason why I looked into hiring from the Philippines is that you lower your payroll liabilities. And just for reference, the nurse typically will make about $300 in the Philippines. And this is an RN. And a lot of workers there, a accountant will make about $15,000 a year. So it pains me when I realize I'm probably paying my accountant, quite a bit of money here, but an accountant makes $15,000, and that's a regular accountant versus here might be 75, 80. English in the Philippines, they're taught English from grade school, and so you'll find that while many of them will have accents, the ones that have a higher education, you'll see it's not so heavily accented, and it's easier for callers and people to understand them versus, workers from India or other foreign countries. And with the Philippines, I'm pronouncing this probably incorrectly, but in the Philippines, there's an island called Cebu, and it's a huge, strong BPO community, which means business process outsourced. So when you guys are calling, your bank or calling, how do I fix my printer, and you have someone from the Philippines answering the phone, they're most likely based there. A lot of the team that we hired, they're very familiar with the tech tools and software required to work remotely. And many of them, in fact, have actually trained me on how to use some of these tools. And so it's going to be really helpful for you to have a team member from the Philippines. Many of them want to work from home. They have big families. They love to have the ability to have their kids right there in the morning so that once they're done with work, they can take them to school.
I was asking about my baby girl.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm not trying to meet everybody here on this quite yet. And also with, I found that a lot of them do have a really good disposition. They're not cranky. They don't have bad attitudes. They truly want to help you. And they're actually very thankful that they have a job they can work from home and make a wage that can support their family. And the Philippines is a number 2 outsourcing destination. And I believe that India may be the first one. So these are the websites that you can use to find the workers. So we have onlinejobs.ph. With Upwork, I have found that they're really good for project-based jobs and not ongoing work. I've posted 2 jobs at the same time, online jobs and Upwork. Online jobs, I may have 50 or 60 applicants, and Upwork, I got 0. So take a look at those 2. With virtualstaff.ph and virtualcoworker.com, these are staffing agencies that will help you find someone. So if you're not inclined to want to do the intensive work of screening resumes, on online jobs on Upwork, you'll have to do that. With Virtual Coworker and Virtual Staff, they will do that for you and present the candidates once you give them your profile and JD. What's great about the staffing agencies is that you think, oh, wow, I'm going to pay a lot more money. In fact, I think we found our billing and payroll assistant through them for their rate was $8.91 an hour, and the minimum is 20 hours a week. So she does if you're using ClearCare, she confirms all she goes through and makes sure the shifts are correct. Our team confirms it. She exports it to payroll. She does all our internal payroll processes. So once it's done, then we review it. So for $8.91 an hour, that's not bad. I think depending on where you are and what minimum wage is. And so I'm going to move to the next slide here. So you can kind of see from this screen kind of what to expect to pay for somebody. Now, a bookkeeper and accountant starting at $7 an hour, I found our bookkeeper privately through online jobs, and I pay her $8 an hour. Yes, I could pay her less, but for $8, it's and she works about 20 hours a month for me, keeping all her books. Like I said, our billing and payroll assistant, once we bought her out of her contract, which is a little pricey, her rate is $5 an hour. So, and you can have, depending on what you're needing, for example, a recruiting assistant is exactly what I think a lot of what we do spend our time looking for caregivers. A recruitment assistant can easily accomplish that. So you can see how, like, and there are no payroll taxes, nothing else added onto that, those wages. And this is for the staffing agency. So direct hire, I put on the tip, you know, it's going to be a little bit less than that. Now, here's some roles that you can hire for. So, for example, a virtual assistant, what I had my assistant doing was putting everything on MailChimp for us to push out to our caregivers as a reminder, hey, turn in your timesheets. You'll have to do some initial work up front, meaning that you'll kind of have to figure out what tasks you spend a lot of time doing that aren't making you a lot of money, but you know it has to get done, and you're the one normally doing it. You know, recruiter, data entry. We tested out scheduling for a while. I did notice in online jobs at home health and home care are starting to outsource it to the Philippines, because if you can outsource it to another company who is doing scheduling in like New Jersey or in Virginia, why not outsource it to the Philippines? I'm considering right now hiring someone to do our inside sales and lead gen, all the follow-up calls that you get that sometimes gets dropped off and you may not see it
Carlo,
all.
bumaba ka dito. Ang ganda nito. Bumaba ka dito. Kailangan marinig mo to.
I'm not sure how to mute her. Let's see if I can figure out how to. So then we also have graphic designers, data entry. These are the back office support roles. And some of the more customer service related roles that you may be doing yourself or may not be doing, or paying a a college student to be doing, are like phone specialists. With live chat, if you guys are not familiar with what that is, what live chat is that we have on our company site, anytime someone pops on, they will, can someone mute their line? And I'm not sure how to mute it on here. See here. I'm not sure how to mute that line. Sorry, guys. Let's see here. So, for example, with live chat, if someone pops up on our website and I see them kind of cruising around, it will alert me to let me know that they're looking, and I could have someone in the Philippines just start communicating with them, so you don't have to be there watching your website around the clock. And that person, as long as you train them, can start communicating with the prospect looking for services. You know, how we use our social media person. She was my all-encompassing executive virtual assistant. How you could use someone for that is, for example, commenting on Facebook, commenting on LinkedIn, making posts for you on business tips or ideas, or groups that you follow on Facebook, which can take a lot of time. Your social media person can go on, and as long as you train them on what to say and how to respond, they can start engaging in conversations with people who are on these groups. I've also hired bloggers and content writers, and for about a penny a word, you know, for a 1,500 word article that you want to put out as a blog, it'll cost you about $15. So that's not a lot of money. And if you give them some direction and you review it does take some work. You review their work, they can easily start creating this information for you. So some of the things of the background that you're going to have to make sure you do is to learn about their culture. Our remote workers, they're really, you know, our Filipinos, they're really, really into family, and families sometimes live with them. Sometimes there's, you know, 4 or 5 people in a home, and they contribute their money in collectively as a pool. So it's really important that you know that, because there's a lot of reasons that they'll take time off, and that is something that has not been an issue for us, but we know that that is important. So if they're taking 2-3 days off for a holiday, we allow for that for many instances. Their education and work experience, look at how that plays into the role. And so what I mean by that is, I noticed that with we had at one point an RN working for us as a recruiter, and she did healthcare recruiting for a facility out in the East Coast. So she knew how to talk to doctors, she knew how to talk to physical therapists, nurses, CNAs. So knowing that she was an RN, it made sense to have her work as a recruiter. When I could explain to her what a CNA does, it didn't take a lot of work. If this person has call center experience, I haven't found so much luck with that type of employee, because a lot of their communications is canned, meaning that, you know, hey, I have a problem with my printer, it doesn't print. They'll take you through the steps it takes, right? You guys have seen it. Okay, well, turn power on and off, plug it in and out, press these series of steps. They know how to do that. But what a lot of times I found is that they've struggled with conversational English. And so in looking for the role, for example, a billing, a bookkeeper, and a payroll assistant, I don't need them to know English that well. They don't have to have conversational English. If they know how to do books and numbers, great, that's what I needed. But for a recruiter, I've noticed that those who have recruiting backgrounds, their English is a lot more improv. It's very conversational. They don't have to follow a script. You give them kind of some guidance and they know where to go, versus a person with working at a BPO center. It's hard for them to shift and have a conversation that is outside of what the script has told them. So those are just some things that you'll have to kind of keep in mind as you interview them, and what kind of education you want them to have. Their bachelor's degree may be slightly different than what we have here for a bachelor's degree. So, but you definitely can request for that. I found that I've been able to hire people who have master's degrees at maybe $7 or $8 an hour. So, and I'm sure you guys all appreciate paying a person in the Philippines $1 from 50 cents to $1.50 more can make a huge difference in the type of worker you get. But here in the US, $1 is not going to make that much of a difference. You're not going to get someone from a bachelor's to a master's degree, right? Or someone from high school to a bachelor's. It's not going to happen. So these are some of like the great things about it. Our Filipinos do have a lot of holidays, so just keep that in mind. You can go online and look up Filipino holiday calendar and set that expectations kind of early on with them of what you will and won't like be okay with. They do have a 13th month bonus, so if they've worked for you for a while, paying them for a full month's salary is like an incentive for them to want to work for you. And the time difference, excuse my language, can be a bitch because our 8 o'clock in the morning is their midnight, and so they better be night owls. Some of the things we also encounter are ghosting. So if the job is too hard, or they haven't received, or it's outside their skill set, or they're not trained well, they may not ever show up for the job. So, or take multiple jobs and not know kind of what to do. So those are some things that you'll have to keep in mind when interviewing them. A lot of natural disasters. We fortunately have all our workers spread out through all the islands. When Manila had that volcano eruption, we had 2 workers there, so it was a little disruptive. But we have other workers on different islands, so it has allowed us to sort of not be all impacted at the same time. If you hire everyone on Manila and there's a volcano eruption and it kind of disrupts daily life, you're going to be down for a few days. So just kind of be aware of that. A lot of power outages. You got to make sure that they have backup tech, and we'll go over more of that. And then SSS and PHI, which will be on later. So here's the tech that you'll need if you're not already using it. And I think with COVID, many of us have sort of had to shift quickly to adopting this technology. So many of them will want to interview using WhatsApp and Skype. If you don't have an account already, I recommend that you get that, and that when you do invite them to an interview, choose one of those 2 options, or they'll post it on their resume. We use Loom, and we record any type of training that we have to show someone using that service, but you can also use other recording options. So there's plenty of them out there. I just found Loom was really easily, and Loom integrates with some other software that we use called Trainual, which is like a training program that anyone new starts, we push it out to them, and it incorporates like screenshots, screen videos, training programs all in one. And if you guys aren't sure what Trainual is, it's just the word train with a like manual, but UA L at the end. For VoIP phones, if you're not using that already, I think assume most of you are, we use that and we just send a link over to our remote workers, and that allows them to answer phones, respond to calls, send messages to candidates, send messages to us as if they're here in the office. If I'm talking too fast, someone just like, I can only see a few people at a time right now or no screenshots. So you can always say, hey, slow down. And at the end, there's gonna be, I'll open it up to questions. For Slack, we use that quite a bit so we don't have to email each other and stay on top of emails. It's basically a collaborative messaging platform that you can group by channels or topics. So we have a channel for recruiting, we have a channel for scheduling, all team channel. So any type of messages that are pertinent to that channel, we post it up and it beeps whoever is part of that group. So we found that really helpful when collaborating with our worker in the Philippines when we're talking about someone's scheduler or someone calling back for a job opening, we can push that right over to our recruiter. Asana and Trello, those are projects to collaborate on. So we use that whenever we're trying to launch something, or for example, we had an office move and I wanted to assign my assistant, I need you to set my, find the electrician to come out. Will you call and interview 3 of them and give me quotes? Call and interview 5 people for this. And so that's really good to assign projects to each person, especially if you have an assistant. They'll either use one of those 2 and they'll ask you if you're using them and almost kind of demand it. So it makes their jobs easier. We use Google Suite. So I hear many people are moving to that. It's a great way just to keep a shared drive and allow access to certain data. With Google Suite, for example, how I use it with my bookkeeper is that any type of payroll items that she needs, I place it directly in a folder for her to review. She sends me she keeps on that folder as well a spreadsheet of any questions she has. So on our, when she has access to ClearCare, and she can see if a client paid us $100 in the bank account, but in ClearCare, she sees it as $100.50. She'll ask me, why is there what's up with this? Why is there a difference? So, and she has access to certain data, but only with Google Suite, you can actually restrict to how much she can view. And I think a lot of you guys are using applicant tracking systems already, so that really helps our recruiters. An online payroll system, our payroll assistant loves that because she can do payroll and not have to get us involved except to approve it. Time tracker, you want to make sure that they're working. So what these time tracking software does is it takes screenshots along the way and during the day of the worker working. So if you see them on a screen for 30 minutes, there's an issue. And the time tracker at the end will calculate the amount of hours for the employee, and then you'll know how much to pay them. And at my company, we use LastPass. If you have not used that yet, these are like, it allows you to share your password to certain accounts without showing the password. Feedback on LastPass is that it's, for lack of better words, it's kind of, it's so confusing to use up front, but once you get it going, it's okay. So I've given it to every team member on my company for whatever I wanted to share my password with. The problem is that some people have figured out how to get it working and some haven't. I'm not an expert at LastPass. I figured it out. I'm not sure what's going on internally where my team can't. So I just say proceed with caution. If you're great with tech, LastPass has been requested by a number of our virtual assistants and a virtual team to have it so they can access certain data. So those are some of the basic needs you're going to have when hiring a person from the Philippines. So kind of with the job description, some of the things that are really important that it's going to be different, and I'll share with you guys what we have, but is that I've seen some JDs in which we have our recruiters doing scheduling, which they're doing payroll, which they're doing customer service. if you give them too many responsibilities, they're going to bail out on you. They want to be successful. And so I found that I only give them a few things as a job responsibility, like recruiting. That's it. All they do is recruit, schedule interviews, and that's it. Recruit and schedule interviews and source. That's their 3 things that they do. And their job is to line up the interviews for our HR person. They're doing all of that screening and sourcing work that frankly can be done at any time, or actually can be done anywhere. And that's what the role we first started with. So when I say like, don't be too specific with the roles, is that if you tell them they have to know Clear Care, not many will, or if they have to know like Broward County or Orange County, California, most won't know. You can train to that. So, but be careful when you say, hey, you have to know certain types of software when you know that you can train themselves on it or train them on it. What I also found that helps is when you're on onlinejobs.ph, look at the other companies and their ads to kind of inspire you to see what they're paying and what they're hiring for. Now, you know, with expectations with our workers, a lot of them, if they've worked for any type of Western company, they have expectations and metrics they have to hit. Our recruiter says, okay, well, she reports to us every week. Here's all the calls I made. Here's what was successful. Here was not successful. And I've set the expectation with our workers that she has to make at least 100 contacts per day, which is kind of low. Some of them are required to make 200 to 300 because they tell me this in the interview. It's like, how many contacts you're supposed to make a day? Well, at least 300. I need to make 75 emails and 25 interviews. So they are sort of used to those high expectations. That's not realistic, obviously, in home care. So you have to figure out what is realistic for you. And we figured out that about 100 phone calls a day is kind of
Man, you ready to eat?
and definitely, are they going to fit into your company culture? So make sure that you interview for that. Now, some of the screening tips we ask them now, obviously, if you guys see this here, we can't ask here in the US if they have kids and family in their situation, but in the Philippines, they say, hey, here's my picture, here's my kids, I'm married, I'm Catholic, I have, you know, I live in Cebu. So it's okay to ask those questions. I wouldn't necessarily lead with it, but that's not illegal to ask that there. However, if you're hiring a recruiter, you need to make sure that they understand that they can't ask those questions. We have a lot of screener questions that we ask. So questions like, you know, what's your work equipment like? You know, do you have a desktop? Do you have a laptop? Many of them will. How fast is your internet? You know, are you able to work in our time zone? Most of them may work in Australia time zone, which makes it easy, but it can be really rough for a person working from midnight to 8 a.m. That's one of the biggest challenges that we've had using someone from the Philippines. When there are power outages, if they don't have a laptop, then they're down. If they don't have backup Wi-Fi, and a lot of them will have high-speed internet, and you should definitely ask them about that. And after this, I'll email you. I'll have to figure out how to email you guys all some of the our screening questions, our interview questions, and some of the basics that a person will need. So you'll have that. But this is all questions that to consider when you are using someone from the Philippines. And one of the most important things is make sure you interview in your time zone. So a lot of them will want to interview in their time zone. It can be kind of difficult. For me, it's basically a test to see if they can actually interview at 2 o'clock our time, which would be 2 o'clock our time would be, let me do the math here. It might be like 3 a.m. their time or 4 a.m. their time. And so you want to sort of do these kind of tests to see if they're awake at that time, or can they be awake and be prepared to work. What I found have worked for us is that we want the person to have clear English with some slang. Our first recruiter we hired, I asked her about, like, you know, what was it like looking for nurses and CNAs? She said, oh, you know, sometimes it can really suck because you can't find really good people. So I thought, okay, she used English slang. She knows how to communicate with the people here. can they have a fluid and conversational, do they have fluid and conversational English? During the interview, you're gonna wanna listen, are they working for a cafe? Do they have a crying baby at home? We had one recruiter, which didn't work out for us. Her baby was crying, and I was like, what is she doing keeping her baby up at like 3 a.m. in the morning when she's working? Because you can hear the baby crying. I said, where's the nanny? Where's the dad? You know, so you'll have to, these are things that you find out when you call in their time zone or our time zone. You know, do they answer it at a scheduled time? We ruled out a lot of people because we said, hey, you know, interview at 3 o'clock our time, which is like what, 5 a.m. their time or 4 a.m. They didn't answer the phone. So, and many will say that they have the experience and they don't. So it's kind of like, just like interviewing people here, is that you have to make sure that they match. And a lot of times, because English is not their first language and there is some slang involved, when you tell them, tell me about yourself, anyone here knows they're asking about their business and their experience. In the Philippines, they may go on about their family, their life, their high school, their friends. And so sometimes you're interviewing, you'll have to adjust it to be very specific to what the job role is. Now, has anyone here used Loom? You guys know what Loom is? Some people know, if you guys don't, let me show you what Loom is. And so Loom allows us to basically record any type of trainings we have and show a person how to do it. So for example, I'm not going to launch, I'll play this, but I'm not going to have the volume on.
Yes. Ready?
So what Loom is that it's a recording of my screen, and it's going to walk a person on how to basically, if you can see my computer, there's a mouse moving. I'm explaining to someone, here's how you upload payroll into CalSavers to do a deduction. I don't want to sit, you know, I want to just do this once and then force it or push it out to my bookkeeper. I can push it out to my payroll person, my office manager. So then if I'm not here, I don't have to walk them through it. I can just record this video and then they know exactly what to do. So here it is. It's just, if I had the volume on, you could hear it. I'm sort of recording and playing. So go back to, let's close this here. Okay, hopefully my screen did not just lock out. Okay, let me go ahead and close that out here. And so having Loom is great for training your team. I recommend also that in part of the training that you teach them what your company culture is and your expectations. Since they're not sitting next to you, it makes it kind of hard to say, here's how you do it, and take them on a tour of your office. It makes it difficult there. So it's important just to make sure that you have a schedule set out and you have a plan, because a lot of times I said, oh wow, I found a great person, let me start them working, and then not really have kind of a plan in place for here, day one is what we're going to take through training, here's day two. I would really consider looking at some type of LMS management system, some type of training program, so then as you start to scale up and hire people, you're not the one, or your manager's not the one walking them through the steps every single time, that you have a training in place. I usually involve my team now they're comfortable with having a remote worker, to have them train someone on a certain step, or to spend a couple hours on training them how to answer phones. Here's these customers, and here's what, you know, what these clients are like. And my team is now bought in, mainly because I tell them, hey, these guys are the reasons why you can get raises. These are the reasons why you still have work here when everyone's been laid off. This is going to allow us to grow and have more opportunity for other positions at the company. So a lot of them are now really, they're bought in on it when they weren't before. And it's just kind of like a side tip is in training our team is that I've gave our recruiter a map and sort of outlined some of the slang of our local area, because telling someone, oh, you know, go to, you know, you're recruiting for South OC, they have no idea what that's like. Or certain neighborhoods, you know, in LA, we have a neighborhood called Brentwood. It's not a real city. There's a real city in California, but if I say, hey, recruit for Brentwood, they'll have no idea what I'm talking about. And so we've sort of had to get down into the weeds and really get into a lot of details on things like that, so they know what to look for. And then you're setting them up for success. So in getting started, you know, I looked at who was the easiest to bring on, and basically if we made a mistake, it wasn't going to like basically cause a company to like go into chaos. So the easiest role to hire was for a recruiter, because I said, okay, I can teach someone how to source on Indeed. I can teach someone how to source on my CNA job. That's not hard. I can teach them about home care. But to get into scheduling, that was like, I had to get this thing down first, get my training wheels on, and then we started to train on a scheduler. And all the mistakes we made in trying to bring on a recruiter, it sort of taught us about what to look for in a scheduling person. Posting an ad on onlinejobs.ph was easy. Using a staffing agency is easier, as long as you have that description. If you don't mind paying an extra, you know, $2 to $3 an hour, and again, we're going from $4 to like $7 or $8 an hour. It's not that big of a jump. That's probably the easiest way to do it, because I know that I see Kat on here, and she said that she was looking at like 60 some resumes, and it's not easy going through all those resumes and filtering through them. What we did find out was that when I hired a virtual assistant for myself and for my manager, we gave her the task of screening out people and said, I would need 10 recruiters to interview, screen out these 70 some or 80 some applications for us. So that's what she did for a week and a half, and then it started to trickle in, and then she finally gave us the candidates that she pre-screened for. You have to give them what to look for, but she did all that work, so then my manager and I weren't spending 10, 20 hours a week calling and finding people. I would first person is hire a virtual assistant, sort of like a catch-all. A virtual assistant also, because they're not sort of set by defined job descriptions so much, you can tell them, hey, find me three, make reservations at these 3 restaurants. Their jobs are kind of flexible in that nature. So once you sort of train them on a task, they can do it, and they like the different responsibilities. So for me, I'm going to bring back our virtual assistant to find us a recruiter. And the next role I would probably hire for is either a bookkeeper or a payroll assistant, unless that's the easier job for you to do. I don't know if you guys have one, how much you're paying them for, but that would be the second or third role. Anyone you hire, don't let them tell you that they don't use time tracking software or they don't like it. They're pulling your leg. You require that. There's a lot of time tracking software. If you use onlinejobs.ph, that is included as part of your membership or subscription cost. They're not very much money. They might be anywhere from $3 to $5 a month per employee, but you require that they download it on their computer, and most of them will have experience using this. They already know, they know to expect it. And then also just initially when you're bringing them on board, giving them very simple tasks to get started. For example, our recruiter, I had them watch all our videos, and I said, okay, what I need you to do is to call all of these caregivers that we've already interviewed and see if they're interested in working for us. They sort of fell out of the loop from somewhere. So I gave her that as a first task for the first few days. And then the second task I gave the recruiter was, okay, here's how you post an ad on Indeed, on My CNA Jobs, on Hirology. And here's how you want to go through and screen them. And then I taught her on how to interview questions and how to rate them. So those are just an initial task. That was it. And now they share calendars. So we now tell a recruiter, okay, here is the hours we interview, no more than 2 per 30 minutes, and it's double book them. And so since we've outlined our task very clearly and very simply, she's able to follow it. And she's actually quite good. So the one we have right now is exceptional. but it did take about a month of training to get her up to speed. And so with pay, I have found that a lot of job postings paying a monthly salary is a norm. We choose to pay hourly because it's, for me, it's just too, not to say too confusing, but to pay $600 on the first day of the month or $700. I found that our workers are very loyal when we pay them by the hour. I get the feeling that a lot of companies in the Philippines sort of stiff them on hours, or and so when we pay them hourly, it seems to work. Because they are afraid that sometimes companies may stiff them and not pay them for like a week or 2 weeks worth of work. A goodwill gesture is after the first week, just pay them on the first Friday when you normally pay. And then that gives them the confidence to continue to work for you. I would recommend paying hourly. That just seems to work. We pay them on the same cycle as the rest of our team. We pay by PayPal. I've asked each one if they prefer to be paid in Philippines pesos or by US dollars. They all want US dollars. I don't know if there are people in Canada listening right now, and I don't know if they would prefer that, but it's good just to ask them. And with PayPal, when they're on onlinejobs.ph, the time tracking software, it will allow them to finish up their week and send you the invoice. Now, once they send you the invoice, if you pay that invoice, it's going to take a few more days for them to get paid versus if you just send them the money directly, and most would prefer that you send them the money directly. It also, if you pay their invoice, the worker has to pay a fee for that to accept it. And so I just rather incur that cost. Again, as a goodwill gesture, it's about $4.99 when it's under $200 some a pay per week. So, and we send them the money directly through PayPal. I don't know how to pay them any other way. I don't know if they have Venmo there. It's just, they seem to like PayPal. All you need is their email, and it's easy to be set up. Don't worry about paying in advance, and don't let them tell you to pay them in advance. Let them at least work 1 week and then pay that week and then get them on your pay cycle. With benefits, what SSS and PHI are like their Social Security and their health insurance. We offer to pay for 50%, and for Social Security and health insurance, for a person who's in their 30s, it's about $45 to $50 a month. So, and they pay their portion too. And so in the attachment I'll send you guys, it'll list how much it has, like how much they're earning and then what they have to contribute. I pay it to them at the first week of the month just to make it easy. And we start offering that after a couple months of the person working for us. We also offer paid time off. And now with the workers who've been with us, they've been with us for about 6 months now. I'm offering to buy them a laptop just because it's expensive. I'd rather have loyalty, and I know that they would appreciate that, but don't offer it too soon. Definitely wait until they've worked for you for about 5-6 months before you start offering those. And obviously you guys know the pros. I mean, $4, $5 an hour versus someone you might have to pay $15 to $18 an hour. You don't have to worry about getting sued. Workers' comp, you don't have to worry about injuries, taking office space. A lot of them already work for Australian, Canadian, and US companies, so they know kind of how we like to have things done. There's some who are even like HR people who are familiar with, I'm in California, so they're familiar with California law. So it's like, oh, they've worked for an HR company, so you're getting the benefit of some of their experiences here. And if they have BPO experience, they're going to really have strong customer service. So that's some of the things to look for when you're looking for a resume. If they say I have BPO experience, you know that they've worked for some type of, like, you know, Canon, Chase, one of a larger company. And some of the cons, time difference has been hard for some of our workers. They have a lot of natural disasters, typhoons, earthquakes, volcano eruptions, really bad weather. Ghosting, we haven't had that happen yet, but I've heard that it has happened to others. A colleague of mine has a team in the Philippines recruiting for him, and he has a manager who oversees the 6 people recruiting there. He said that sometimes they will find someone else to do the work for them, and they sort of, collect on the paycheck and pay the person the money, but they're not doing the work themselves. So you got to make sure that that doesn't happen. And one of the mistakes I had up front was that my job description was not clear. When I had a virtual assistant, I sort of wanted her to do everything. And instead, it's like, okay, all I need you to do is to get on social media and engage with my people. Send out MailChimp for me, and here's how I want you to send it out. Once I got very clear, it made it easier for my assistant to do the work. Another thing is having them do your job. What that means is like, hey, I need you to like improve my scheduling. I need you to like, make my emails better, my email marketing better. They don't necessarily know how to do that unless the person says they do social media campaigns. So just know that when you're asking them to do something, just get really specific, but not too specific. And we've hired people too fast and didn't check the references. And so it's sort of, we're trying to make them fit into the role when they clearly were not working out. And so some of those are the mistakes that we made, was that, hey, we found a great scheduler. He had this fantastic personality, but it wasn't quite gelling on certain things. And so he wasn't answering the phones when we would call him. Our expectation is you answer the phones within 15, or you have to answer the phones within 3 rings. And if we don't hear from you in 15 minutes, there's an issue. So we had to make sure that we made those clear. And these are just some podcasts to listen to. I have these links here for us. I can push it out to you guys, as well as $100 MBA. And there's another one. I was trying to copy the link, but it wasn't so easy. If you guys go to the podcast, it's called Entrepreneur Stories, and do a search for outsource or outsourcing. There's a few of them that have great 1-hour podcasts on working with people from the Philippines. And that was really helpful. So I was trying to make this into an hour, and so that we would have questions for afterwards. Let's see if I can figure out how to unmute everybody. So that's sort of it to the screen, to this part of the Zoom call. What questions do you guys have? And let's see how I can back out of this here. I don't know how to unzoom everybody. Let's see here. Well, I guess you guys are, I haven't muted most people. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Anne.
Hi, Kat.
Hi. So for your recruiter, how do you handle the documents, the Social Security, the license, and all that sensitive information?
That's a good question. So she doesn't handle any of that. What her job is that she goes on to Indeed and she posts ads. She contacts candidates, screens them, asks all the questions that everyone sort of wants to know. And then once they're ready for the interview, she sends them over to our HR person, who then collects the information and has them come in for drug testing. So she does all the heavy screening up front to get to and then she lines up interviews for our HR person. And then from there, our HR person interviews that person.
I see. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? You just
Yes, I
ask the
have a
way.
question.
Oh, sure.
Hey, my question is, when it comes to your payroll, how much access do they have?
Oh, well, our payroll assistant sort of have access to pretty much everything, short of the Social Security numbers. And so in our payroll software, we use Paylocity. We have the ability to give her certain information and restrict access. So her role is, once she exports clear care data. I don't know if you guys clear, her job is to export it out, and then she imports it into Paylocity. And from there, whatever pay nuances she needs to fix, she fixes that, and then she sends it in to submits it to payroll.
Does she also handle your taxes and stuff that has to be paid with the bookkeeping part?
No, Paylocity does all of that. So they submit all our payroll taxes to whatever entities we have to do that with. Our bookkeeper has access to, she has access to ClearCare, she has access to QuickBooks. And what I do with my bookkeeper is I submit, for example, my bank statements, but I remove all the digits except for the last 4 digits. And I submit my credit card statements. So she sees them and reconciles them. And I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of us to have to give access, give them that access. But I try to do everything I can to make sure that not one person's handling all the financials, because that exposes us more to than 2 or 3 people working and only knowing different parts of the financial aspect. With my bookkeeper, when I found her on online jobs, I just typed in bookkeeper and it spit out like 4 or 5 people. I reached out to each one and said, hey, I'm hiring a bookkeeper. Can you tell me more? And what is your rate? And what's your availability? Once they responded back, I cross-referenced them with LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I found my bookkeeper and I saw that she's a certified QuickBooks Pro and Xero Pro. So I got her on the phone and chatted with her. I really couldn't understand her English that well, but I understood it enough to say, okay, I don't need to understand her English. She just tells me what I need to give her on like missing data. She'll say like, hey, you know, I see that there is a deposit here in your bank account from Transamerica, but it's not matching up with what I see exported from ClearCare. Can you fix that for me? Or who is this for? And then she'll adjust it. So she averages about 20 hours a month for us, and our revenues for our agency are about 2.2 million. So so you can understand, so you can see like how much time it would take for a bookkeeper to handle finances on a size like our company.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask you one last question?
Oh no, ask away.
What if I wanted to use the same system that you have, but has a job position for a scheduler that, you know, that my calls can be routed to and they can answer the calls and schedule? Do you think that would be a good thing or not really?
So with our scheduler, it was hard. I can tell you some of the challenges we had. My team, our scheduling team, was not happy about that. I think they thought that their jobs were going to be taken away, so they sort of did not want him to do well. The time difference was a big issue because during the quiet times, as you guys know, there's lots to do during the quiet times, but during the quiet times, he would fall asleep because, again, it's like 3 a.m. his time or 2 a.m. With schedulers, you have to teach them the area, you have to teach them the caregivers and the clients, what rates, what issues, what clients' medical conditions, assessments. So it's a lot to teach them. It's not to say that it can't be done, but I wanted to experiment with the easiest job first so I can get kind of like my training wheels and figure out how to work with these workers before I said, okay, I'm ready for a billing payroll person. Now I'm ready for a bookkeeper. Our scheduler was the last person we hired for this role. I want to do it again, but I'm afraid the time difference is going to be really hard. I'm considering looking at Guatemala. And the only reason why I'm thinking about Guatemala, or 2 reasons, is that we use Jive and some of my customer service interaction with them. The people answering the phones, English has been quite good, barely an accent. And I wasn't sure where they were based out of. I said, hey, where are you guys based out of? I thought they were gonna say Utah. He's like, oh no, I'm in Guatemala. And their wages are very similar to the Philippines. So on average, it's $600 to $800 a month is what a person with living in Guatemala or the main cities earn. And it's only a 2-hour time difference for us. They're in central time zone versus like all the way 16 hours ahead of us. So I'm looking at it, but I started to do the research, and it does take some time, and it seems like it's much easier to work with the Philippines. It's just, so I don't know if that helped you, Valerie, but it
It did. Thank you.
The scheduler would be the last position. I still am sort of hesitant to hire because there's so much training they have to know. I mean, clients, right, caregivers, rates, you know, how home care works, the laws, the regulations, overtime. There's a lot they have to kind of factor in. And so I thought, hey, if I can get recruiter and bookkeeper, those two will save me about $100,000 a year. Let's start with those first.
Okay. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
I had a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, my name is Johnson. I joined in a little bit late, so I missed a few, I think maybe 5 or 7 slides in the beginning. Would you mind sharing the slide deck if you don't?
Sure. I think if everyone is signed up, I have this recorded and I'll actually send you guys a slide deck too. So I'm gonna make a note here to myself. Sure. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time. I think overall you were pretty clear and it's pretty good.
I try to keep it, I talk fast, so I'm, if I ran through something, let me know. I can definitely
I have
share
a question.
Sure.
So I'm a little confused and I'm hoping you can explain this to me. You are not a BPO company. I cannot call you. I don't quite understand exactly what it is that you're trying to market or sell here. I was contacted by a BPO company in the Philippines who would hire a bookkeeper, who would hire a recruiter, who would do all of those things, and then just be an outsourced satellite office for us doing all the work. And I would never have to hire somebody. I'd never have to find somebody. I'd never have to train somebody. They would do all of those things for us. What exactly is it that you are trying to do here? I'm a little confused. Are you just marketing Filipino employees to American companies?
No, actually, Khalid, I'm actually just a business owner here in Orange County, California, who happened to be listening to a podcast about hiring Filipino workers. It's called the $100 MBA, Omar
Right.
Zenhom. And he said, hey, you know, I use people from the Philippines and this is what it does for my company. And so I'm just here to share my experience and tips with people on basically can you guys add, you know, an easy $100,000 to your bottom line by outsourcing your bookkeeper. Your
Perfect.
recruiter. I'm not here to sell anything, just here to give you guys my experience and some advice. And you don't have to use an outsourced company. I would actually, this is how you do it yourself, a DIY approach. We're a pretty scrappy bunch of people. So just showing you guys how to find these workers, how to hire them, kind of what I've gone through, and some of the homework I'm giving you, you guys are business owners, you're going to pick it up really quickly. It's all these research I had to learn how to do, like, how do I pay these guys? It's like, okay, let me research that. PayPal. How do they want to get paid? Well, they want you to send money to them, US dollars. If you pay them in pesos, they have to pay for the conversion rate, and they don't want that. If they send you an invoice, you pay that invoice, it's going to take an extra 5 or 6 days for them to get paid. They don't want that. So these are all the things I sort of learned along the way, and say, okay, just send them the money directly. You know, here's how I found my bookkeeper. Here's how I found these people. So you definitely can use these staffing agencies, but then you still have to train the staffing agency on what you want to do.
Right. I was contacted by a BPO firm in the Philippines, and they simply said, we will give you 3 people. Each one of those will be, let's say, $600 a month, and one will recruit, one will do the accounting, and one was some other admin work. They would be the one hiring those people. They would be the ones training those people on our SOPs. They would be the ones doing the firing and making sure that they're tracking and everything. We would simply be giving them the work, and they'll be monitored by that local BPO company, which is obviously charging some kind of a surcharge in addition to the payroll that they're paying to these Filipino employees. So that's why I was curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could use them, but then you still have to train them, right, on all your policies and procedures. They are saving some time in that they're doing the work for you. I just wanted to do it myself because I wanted to see how it worked before I started to use an outsourcing company. And I would recommend starting with the recruiter, because that seems like the easiest job to train them on. Is if you need more bodies in the door, and if you look on online jobs.ph and you just start searching for resumes, you'll see a lot of people looking for recruiting assistants or their recruiters. And I realize that a lot of them are already working for recruiters for companies here. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is
Sure.
fantastic information.
This is
Thank
just
you.
advice. This is just things I learned along the way that I'm wanting to share with people because I know how hard it is to make a profit in this business, and it's not a bad word. So if you're making 5 or 6%, why not make 8, 10, 12%?
Absolutely. Once again, thank you.
Oh no, sure.
Hey
Is
team.
anybody else?
Yeah, my name is John. Thank you for holding this session for us. How long have you had your outsourced recruiter for?
The one we have now, her name is Anna Lynn. She's been with us since September. Before that, we had 2 of them, Princess. We're actually in the process of hiring a recruiter now. And then before that, about a year ago, we had I don't remember her name. She was an RN. She worked out for like a week. She says, I can't, I have family obligations. But
Okay.
so I can show you. If you guys are in front of your computers, if you look up virtualcoworker.com, I found our billing and payroll assistant through this company. And that's what the screenshot I showed you earlier is. This is just one company I found. There's a lot of others. There's one called Outsourcing Angel. All their fees are about the same. You'll pay anywhere from about $6 to $8 an hour for a virtual assistant, lead gen, all those things that you guys don't have time to always do, like follow up on leads. I don't know if anybody else doesn't follow up with leads as much as we do, but you can hire someone to like stay on top of that and then pay them a commission. You know, paying them $5 for every person that closes is a lot of money to them. And you'll see there, if you on Virtual Coworker, you scroll down halfway down the page, you'll see that their recruitment assistants start at $6 an hour. So that's what half of our roles are, right? Is recruiting, finding people. They can do a lot of that legwork for you.
Yeah. So the turnover rate for you, you would imagine is around 6 to 9 months for those recruitment assistants?
Princess, we let go. I think Anna Lynn might be with us for a while. We're too new at this to figure out what the turnover rate is so far.
Okay.
But for me, I'm like, hey, I'll take the turnover at $6 an hour. We've sort of now recruited. We sort of like recorded every training aspect of recruiting now. So now anybody new starts, we just kind of play it for them. But these Filipino workers, they're hardcore, man. I mean, our recruiter now, she just had a baby 3 weeks ago. She says, oh, all I need is like a week off and then I'm back on the job. I'm like, oh, people in the US are wusses. We need like 12 weeks, 4 months or 6 months. She's like, no, I'm fine. So now she's like 3 weeks later, she's like, I've got kids. I've got a mother-in-law. They're watching the kids. I'm gonna work. I'm like, oh, okay, fine, great. So they're hardcore there. They're hard workers. I see Kat nodding. She's like, yeah, they're hard workers. What else can I answer for you guys?
I had a question. My name is Alan out of Houston, Texas. A quick question. Is there any like KPIs or how do you know you're not getting kind of bamboozled? I know time is money. So, you invest time and effort to train someone. And if like the story you shared earlier, someone, paying someone else to do the work. I mean, is there indicators or something that where you're kind of getting shafted?
Hey, I worry about that too, Alan. That's a good question. So part of our expectations are that, well, first off, once you hire them or bring them on, is to definitely have them download something called either Time Doctor or Time Tracker. There's these softwares that will take screenshots of their computer throughout the day. And as they're working, you'll see them, like if their screen is not changing, let's say if they're working in not ClearCare, but let's say Hierology or Indeed, you should see that computer screen change every few minutes or so.
Sure.
So, and it takes a snapshot. I believe it might be every 5 minutes or every 15 minutes it takes a snapshot. So if you don't see their screen changing, then there's an issue. Some of them may get a little crafty and download a software that'll make it change, but you can you'll catch on to it. So for the first few weeks, we were watching their monitors to see how often it would update. With our recruiter, we have it to where if she goes on break, she's to Slack us and say, hey, I'm on a bio break. So we know. if we reach out to them, the expectation is they have to respond back to us within 15 minutes. If their phone rings, I can see whose phone is ringing through Jive, and it's like, okay, Annalyn's phone is ringing, she's on the phone, so that's why she's not responding. That's kind of like the best we can do with someone working remotely. But you guys are all pretty savvy that you'll know if they're not calling you back and you've called them and left them a message half an hour ago, then there's something up, right? And you
Right.
back them. And so that's kind of our best guess. Usually, like our scheduler, he had issues with falling asleep because when it got quiet, and the team, reported it right away. They said, hey, he's not responding to us, and we're asking them what's going on with this case. So he didn't work out. We tried him for about 3 months, and it just did not work. I want to make it work because that would save another like 50 to 60,000 in payroll.
For sure. Well,
And it
thank you so
allows you
much.
guys, right? It allows you guys to grow. You're like, hey, I can save, because we all have the issue. I want to grow, but if I spend 50, 60,000 bringing on a scheduler / recruiter, that's like money that can be spent towards marketing. Well, how do I do this? And so, yeah, that's how you sort of kind of like keep tabs on them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys have good instincts. You know when someone's working or not. So, any other questions? Don't be shy. Seriously, this is like I'm happy to share.
Go ahead. I had one more question.
Sure.
On your JDs, are they similar to the U.S. or are you more like cut and dry on the JDs that you post for? I'm not sure how it works. I guess you go to these websites and you post job descriptions and work. Are they very similar to like a job description in the U.S.?
Yes, our job description is very similar, except like, for example, I have in the requirements, they have to have a BPO experience, or if they have to work in our time zone, they have to have certain technology like a headset, 2 laptops or a laptop and a monitor. They have to have high-speed internet. Basics that are here, you'll want to tell them and have them take a screenshot of their high speed. So they say, yeah, I have high-speed internet. You can ask them, what's the speed? And you guys all know what's that one app called Speed Test. They have something similar to that, and have them take a screenshot and send it to you. I'll send you guys some of the questions that we have. I have a kind of like a file that I don't know how to send it on Zoom, but I'll figure it out. If not, I'll post it on Facebook, and I'll let you guys know to grab it. I'll post up interview questions we have for our recruiter position, the job description for the virtual assistants, and some of the screener questions we have. So that's how our job description is different, especially for anybody who is doing recruiting or scheduling, is that they have to have backup Wi-Fi. So a lot of them will have a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot that they take with them. And obviously some of the questions we ask in the job description, or not in the job description, but to note, like, what do you do when you have a natural disaster? I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but about back in February, March, there was a volcano eruption in Manila. And one of our workers says, I can't do anything right now because there's ash falling anywhere and the cell towers are affected. And she was out for like a week and a half. Thank God she's only she was actually my virtual assistant. So anything that she had to do, she had to relocate, and that takes like a week out of somebody. So I said, hey, just do our MailChimp and work on coming up with something to notify all these caregivers that, hey, we're recruiting, we're hiring, work on that MailChimp campaign and get that out. Don't worry about anything else. So you have to think about that. They have typhoons quite a bit, only on certain islands, not all islands, just certain islands, depending on where they are. Earthquakes, power outages. So that's why scheduling is the last position we have put up, because I'm like, oh man, if the phones go down and have a natural disaster, we can't have an entire team in the Philippines, because who's going to answer the phones? No one's going to know what to do. So it's sort of like, what can we outsource and what has to be in the office?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. This is super helpful. I've been wondering about outsourcing to the Philippines for a number of years. Like, I'm in San Francisco. The salaries are really expensive. we've actually opened up an operations center in Santa Rosa, and it saved about $20,000 per person. And then we hired a couple of people in Iowa, and it turns out that saved another $20,000 a person. And so then I keep thinking, like, the ultimate is to outsource to the Philippines, because you could save even more. By the way, even our Santa Rosa office, like, we've had to close it because of like wildfires and power outages. So it's not just the Philippines that you got to worry about. You might have already covered this, but I was wondering, like, how long have you been doing this outsourcing to the Philippines? That would be one question. And then the other question would be, of the number of people that you've hired, how many have worked out? Like, kind of what's your hit rate?
We started about a year and a half ago with our first recruiter. She worked out for about 2 weeks, and then she left due to family issues. And I can't, her name slips me now. And so I'll just have to talk out with my hands, because that's how I remember. So we have Annalyn working for us now. We have Ianth that does our billing and payroll, and Charmaine that does our bookkeeping. We had Charles doing scheduling, and we had Princess. Charles and Princess didn't work out. And we have Nell, she's my executive assistant. We let her go as soon as COVID hit, because I didn't need her as much, but now I'm looking to bring her back. So, and she would handle things like, can you go through my emails, and anytime you see a lead, I have it automatically forward to her. I said, when you see that lead, make sure you capture it, put it in MailChimp so that as an automated email goes out to her. And all of these other emails, Nell would do our recruiting, initial screening of any candidates we want for either a recruiter, scheduler, office role. So if I were to say, hey, we're going to bring in another person in the office, I would have her do all the initial screening and just present me with 10 candidates. So you saw like,
so it sounded like maybe you hired 7 people and 4 have worked out.
Yeah. So, and it's been more of an experiment in the last year to see if it makes a difference. It made the biggest difference with the recruiter and bookkeeper, because I found my bookkeeper wasn't really doing a good job at all and was terrible. And she's been with me for 4 years. And so once I found out this bookkeeper can do all these great things online, that was great.
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah. So any other questions? I mean, hopefully the savings is going to make everyone really happy.
Hey, what do you see the future for your business? Like, let's say you double your business. How many people will you have in the Philippines then?
I think it's more of like, if the role does not have to be here, Jim, it's going to be in the Philippines.
Okay.
So I'm looking at hiring also an inside sales / lead person, maybe. And this is something that it's like, again, it's an experiment. Why not have our marketer, if they're not allowed in these nursing homes, why not have a marketer do all the calls to these nursing homes? It's what are marketers going for? I just put a job ad for 55 to 65,000 a year, plus benefits, plus this. If it can be done from remotely, it would be worth, for me, it's like, I don't mind doing the experimenting to see if it's going to work. It's just laying down the foundation and the script and who to call on. Because I'm finding out that my team can't do it. I don't have the time to do it, but it has to be done. And if we can't go into these facilities, why not make the calls?
It seems like it just opens up a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of things that you wouldn't do at, $50,000 or $60,000 a year, but if it's, $8,000 a year, you can do a lot.
Right? It's like 8,000 a year. Yeah, the person, they can work 40 hours a week making these calls. No lawsuits, workers' comp. You pay someone 60,000 a year. It's more like, what, with all the benefits and time off, and what, 72,000 a year you're paying, and you're hoping that they're going to grow the business that amount in what, 3-4 times more, 5 times more, to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm curious if you're thinking about, if anyone else is thinking about possibly using them as your marketer, since we can't go to facilities right now.
Yeah, I think I would start small, like you did, like maybe an executive assistant, and then do the easy stuff first, and then, maybe helping people that are playing key roles in my organization first, and see if they can kind of move up the food chain. And then But yeah, sales that'd be a big one.
There's a lot of salespeople, actually. There's a few people who I thought were trying to sell me on their role. Like, hey, I do commissions, I can close deals. I'm like, wow. Because you're working for a lot of these companies who they're manning the phones, or they're required to do. I found a lot of real estate assistants in that they are pursuing leads from people who have inquired about a property. There's a lot of virtual assistants. If you look at online jobs, they even have a course on how to be a real estate virtual assistant. They're calling people back, getting them interested in a home, getting them on a real estate's, a realtor's kind of like calendar for showings. And so a lot of them may have sales experience. If you are looking for sales roles, there's quite a number of them who have it. So I don't know. I'm interested to see if I can actually make it happen. Create the job description, the training program, and seeing if we can make some progress of this. It'll cost a couple $1,000s versus like $50,000 in the States.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
sort of how I see it.
you know, you can't always be sure you're going to hire the right person in the Philippines, but you can't even be sure you're hiring the right person in the U.S. And it's actually a lot harder to get rid of them in the U.S.
You're right. They can sue you.
Yeah.
Right. They can file a claim, all kinds of things
Take
that.
your time documenting everything.
At least in the Philippines, I say, here's a list of people, go to it. Here's, Power Shot training and Home Care Sales Pro. They have a really good training program that helps people get into the doors of nursing homes. And then now they're gearing them specifically to work remotely. So that's what I'm sort of leaning towards now is, it'll cost a couple $1,000s, in 4 or 5 months versus 30,000 for a marketer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if anyone's going to try it. If you guys get back on a call, and we'll see how it works.
I have a question. How do you handle this as I guess a contractor job where you're just, you can't even give them a 1099. Basically, they're giving you an invoice and you're basically paying them for that invoice, right?
Exactly.
So there's no payroll taxes involved or anything like that. So it's basically they're giving you an invoice and you just pay that invoice, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, they're like freelance workers. They'll send me an invoice, but what I do is I just go in and send them money as a friend in PayPal, because if I pay their invoice, it takes a few days longer, and a lot of the Philippine workers, I just don't want them to have to wait. I want them to be able to get their money right away, and they really appreciate that. So it's all towards a goodwill gesture.
Okay.
Has anyone ever hired anyone from Fiverr or Upwork?
Yeah.
If you guys, it's kind of like the same kind of freelance concept.
How do you classify that as a business expense when you're doing your books?
Professional services.
Professional services.
Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of times you want to make sure that the information is secure, or that you're hiring a good worker. You can ask them to provide, go to the police department and have them provide what's called like an NBI, and they'll run their background checks. So, and they can give you a copy of that too. So, for what it's worth in the Philippines. So that's why I said start with the recruiter and virtual assistant first. Those are the two easiest jobs to hire for least contact with any, HIPAA related information. Like for example, our billing payroll assistant, she goes on and bills the VA for us. She used to work for an insurance company here in the US processing claims. So she sort of knows coding and what to look for.
Well, thank you, Anne. This is really very informative. I'm waiting for those questions because I have people lined up for interviews tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
For the recruiter and bookkeeper. So I found really a lot of, CPAs and QuickBooks Pro Certified for $4 an hour in Upwork.
Oh, wow.
And they're willing to work on our time zone. So I'm excited to interview. I got 110 applicants for that bookkeeper position.
That's great. If you're not using QuickBooks Online, definitely do that, because that's great, JobCat, because with my bookkeeper, she said she didn't know how to use QuickBooks Online, and it was taking her like 60 days to do the books. And with my bookkeeper, Charmaine, I know I'm overpaying her, but it's sort of like accepted, like, hey, I'm only paying her $160, $200 a month to do my books. I was paying my bookkeeper before $5,000 plus benefits. And so I'm like, okay, I'm a win. I don't care if I'm paying her, you know, a little bit more an hour. I'm a happy person.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
I'll send all those questions out. Does anybody know how to use this